Welcome, everybody. Another episode of Two Chaps Mini Cultures. Today, we're going to talk about hard and soft, as in hard skills and soft skills, and whether that is actually the terminology that we want to use when it comes to competencies, capabilities, abilities in and around the workplace. So, hard, soft, something else? We'll pick it apart. Welcome, everybody. Episode 182, Two Chaps Mini Cultures, the number one, as we claim it, the number one show about the business of culture and how culture influences business. How are you doing, Brett? How are you going?
Well. Doing great. I'm looking forward to today's topic because I think this is very important. I love it.
So, do you feel hard or soft today? Have you hardened up for this episode? Are you tough? Are you ready to go into battle here? Or are you soft like a pillow and like a feather? And what is it?
No, I'm possessing all the skills. I've got the hard skills, which I managed to actually show up here, right? I managed to switch on the computer. I managed to actually navigate myself to the Two Chaps virtual towers of wonder. But then, of course, okay, so you said soft skills. This is very interesting. Soft as in, and I know this is great. I'm setting you up. The soft skills meaning, do I actually know what I'm talking about? Have I got the right tools in place as far as the more conceptual things that I need to do to be able to achieve my goals? Well, is that the right terminology? What is your perception of that?
Well, with your permission, and not that I would need it, but I'm asking it anyway. With your permission, I'm just going to throw caution in the wind. And I'm going to say hard skills, soft skills, bollocks. Doesn't matter what you call it, soft, hard. Who came up with this nonsense? Who decided it's going to be hard or soft? I don't know. No. And how? Here's the implied meaning that comes with it. I think that's what bothers me most. So hard versus soft in a work world that up until recently was dominated by the male parts of society. Hard is something desirable. Soft is what we don't want to be, right? Hard is we are good guys, we go into battle, we are tough, we know what we're talking about, nothing can deflate us, we are winners, we're competitors, right? Hard versus soft, that is weak, that is maybe not reliable, that is questionable maybe. Is that something that's really relevant? So yes, hard skills they are. Soft skills, I don't know, maybe, what, I don't care. And this is a fallacy, I think. This is complete bogus. Yeah. Because, and then I said this before here, and I say this in probably every training program, without the soft skills, none of your hard skills work. You can have all the expertise, all the subject matter knowledge. You can be the best paper pusher in the world, or you can be the best, whatever it is you are doing. You might be the best at your craft. That's awesome. That doesn't necessarily mean that you know how to communicate efficiently, how to relate to other people, whether it be your colleagues, your associates, your clients, your suppliers, your vendors. Doesn't mean that you can actually lead other people or inspire them, get them to do what you want them to do or what is within your business's interest. These are apparently soft skills. Now, if that's okay for you that you don't have those because it's down here, if it's not important to you because it's soft, then good luck, right? I mean, that's my beef that I have with it. And I could go on, but I mean, I want to give you a chance to lasso me back in before I jump off the cliff.
No lassoing, no lassoing. We are a free spirit here in this wonderful, safe place and community, right? But I think I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It can be a challenge to talk about something that is soft, because usually we put soft skills in the box of things that are intangible, things that either you can't measure, and as somebody who comes out of the, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it type of mentality, that was kind of an old-fashioned way. I mean, it has some relevance today, right? But you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So therefore you need data, you need real results, and what's this going to mean for my bottom line? So that's why understanding skills, we go to school, we get trained in a certain skill set, we get the tools that we need, and then we go to work. But of course, how much do we then kind of translate that in as we grow and develop as leaders in any setting, but let alone a global setting, where you have to identify what are the, as you say, the right ways to motivate, inspire, and just corral people, and especially in the context of different cultures. So that is again, and I know you've shared this before on social media, the talk by Simon Sinek was not a talk, it's just an answer to a question about the fact about the soft skills, as he says quite rightly, these are human skills. Right. And we diminish them because they are kind of somewhat immeasurable. But I think you and I think if you really got to the core of most leaders of worth their salt, they have seen and not gotten to the level they are without a certain degree of the ability to deploy human skills in terms of managing other people, because that's where the secret lies. Yeah.
Well, and this, if I can't measure it, if I can collect data around it, if I don't have numbers to prove it, then I can't manage it. I get that. That's the good old Peter Drucker school of management, and I'm not making that wrong. That I think that's still a valid point when we talk about setting goals, accomplishing them, holding ourselves accountable to our process. Without measurement, without mile markers to prove our progress or to check reality versus imagination, we're up the river without a paddle. And I think that is what social sciences have been tasking themselves with for the last 3-4 decades, to make the so-called soft skills. I'm not calling them, I'm calling them so-called soft skills. For me, they're power skills. Others call them interpersonal skills or human skills, people skills, whatever you want to call them. I favor power skills because I think they are powerful, and without them, without these so-called soft skills, your power will be lacking. And I don't think the hard guys amongst you would like to be deprived of power, right? So that's why I labeled it as power skills, because that, I hope, triggers those who are looking for hard skills. So we do have measurements. It's not like we can't measure power skills. We have, in our cross-cultural world, we've been working with measurement tools, whether it be cross-cultural comparison frameworks like GlobeSmart or the Hofstede's World, or Aaron Meyer's framework and von Strompena's, which all build upon each other to certain degrees. And there's other measurement tools that are available to us. There's a multitude of them out there. So claiming that it's not measurable, that it's hard to quantify, that may have been the truth a long, long time ago when that hard versus soft label was distributed. I think we have long moved on, and yet I think, and that's where I agree with Simon Sinek, who I think sings my song, I sing his. I don't know who started singing that song first, doesn't really matter. Probably Simon Sinek, because he's famous, and I don't know, I'm infamous probably. But I think where he's right is that we focus on developing people in the workplace around their subject matter expertise, about their factual, quantifiable, teachable, quote unquote, hard skills. We don't really have developed, or not every organization is focusing energy and resources on developing power skills. Because as you elevate people who are good at doing their job into roles where they now have to not only do their job, but make sure that other people do their job and do their job together under the tutelage of somebody who's overseeing that, or casting a vision and corralling people around that vision. As you get elevated to such a job, nobody taught you how to do that, most likely, right? Unless your company is a bit more developed around this. But I don't know, in my experience, most of the clients that I work with, until they started working with us, they didn't really pay attention to developing power skills.
Yeah. If you've had the benefit of having it modeled for you, you probably have learnt it inherently. If you've had the fortunate, like I've said, I've got some people that when I used to be an employee many years ago, I can point to a particular person who I still credit to this day for inspiring me to do what I do, right? And it was modeled for me by that person, and he developed in me the spark that it was important that you developed the human skills, power skills, to be able to do what you can do. Whereas somebody who followed him after that was totally about just the numbers. And whenever you didn't hit the numbers, then you were a bad person by decree. It's kind of like a terrible way to look at it. So just want to bring in our we've got some guests. Maria, how are you? And by the way, Maria, I know I owe you a message back. I am getting to that this afternoon. Soft skills is the software of a person. Nothing really like soft. Absolutely, it's a good way to point it, right? Good way to think about it, because we say about the external part of you is the hardware, and everybody turns up in whatever shape or form that they do. The internal software is really what's written by the culture you come from, your influences, your upbringing, your parentage, the language you speak, all that kind of stuff. That's a very important thing. And so hard skills, the same analogy? Well, maybe some of those things are even taught by the culture, right? The hard skills of how to greet people, how to interact with people, what's appropriate, what are the protocols. These are specific rules or unwritten rules of a society that people might operate in, and that might influence the way that we do business, of course, right? So I think this is very important. I've forgotten that your analogy with power skills. I think it's a great way to look at it. It does help the people who say, well, soft skills seems a bit, soft and unimportant, but the power skills seem like this is actually really important. Power skills denotes the influence of this to actually have an impact on your bottom line and your success as a leader. And I think that's very important to maintain. Not to just dismiss it, right?
And I think it's also a totally changed narrative, right? If someone who is a facilitator, service provider, intelligence inducer, whatever, in the quote unquote soft skills arena, then you will very often be confronted with a diminutive response by those that you want to win as your clients, because by continuing that soft versus hard dualism, you diminish the work that you do. And I'm if that sounds accusatory, it is. Stop it.
Stop it.
Stop doing that.
Stop it, you people.
Stop
it. Well, okay. So here's the point: is that the inability of some people to recognize this is not really, it's not on them totally. I mean, they may be in an organization that just doesn't value it. I think I can talk from experience in all of the different leaders I've worked with to the highest levels. When you get to the human conversation with them and about what makes them tick and what really switches them on in terms of their achievements, it is maybe the small sparks of the ability to inspire and motivate key people in the organization to achieve goals, right? To achieve real results.
Right.
That's basically what we're driven by, right? We get our reward out of that. And sometimes they can express a frustration that their company perhaps doesn't value it. But they can't express it. It doesn't look good. There's probably nowhere on an evaluation sheet to put that down. It's like, it's just, we hit the numbers this week, or we didn't hit the numbers this month, or whatever. And when you're trying to put a reason around it, perhaps the hard, more tangible aspects of the business might be something you're drawn to. We think about the stock market. What do we look at? We look at return, earnings, price to earnings. These are very, very number driven results. And what I love to do, and I'm not a big individual investor, but I kind of play in it a little bit. And what am I driven by? Me personally, I'm driven by listening to a CEO. Now, the company can be the highest flying company in the world, and they can be very successful. But if I listen to the CEO and I don't get a feeling that he or she has the one, or is willing, they probably have the skills, but they're willing to express it on a public forum, then I would say, well, possibly that's going to filter down through the organization. Yeah. And that's, I would rather take my risk with a CEO that is more in terms of in touch with the ability or the importance of these power skills to be deployed in their organization.
Right. Simon Sinek, in his work, I don't know how many of you are watching his talks. I mean, his TED Talk about the power of why is what put him on the map. He followed up with some great books, I think, and some of his management theory is not revolutionary new. He simply repackages some of our newish insights that we've collected over the last, let's say, 30, 40 years into a millennial Generation Z compatible format. But he uses an example that I quite like because it speaks to the hard versus soft fallacy, because he uses an example of the Navy SEALs who have a performance measurement matrix, like on a X and Y axis diagram, where there is high performance or high capability or whatever, let's just say high performer, and the other axis is high trust. So naturally, what the organization wants, and let's argue that the Navy SEALs are an organization that knows what they're doing. Whether you are a fan of the military or not doesn't matter, but they've been successful in what they are doing. So the argument is that, well, every organization wants somebody with high trust and high skill, right, or high capability set. But nobody really wants the ones that have low trust and low capability. So that's pretty clear what is 100% and what's 0%. Now, when Sinek asked the people at the Navy or at the Navy SEALs, what would you rather have, somebody with high capabilities and low trust, or somebody with low trust and mediocre to low capabilities? And the answer was crystal clear. The high capability, low trust people are toxic. Those are the performers who bulldoze over everybody else. We'd rather have somebody who we can still upskill on the quote unquote hard skills, on the stuff that matters for our work, but we know we have a high trust level with them. And you can easily translate that into soft versus the hard skills. And if we're going to do that, then one of the hardest organizations in North America, if not the world, I'm sure there's other great military organizations, but a really, really hard cadre of people doing a really hard job, they acknowledge that they value the so-called soft skills over the so-called hard skills. So power skills, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I
thought that was a great. Yeah, I think that was a great analogy. I can see myself doing that. I would perhaps rather work with somebody who's a little bit lower on the skill sets but still trust them. And also, where does that trust also lead you? It leads you into a place where that person is probably showing some humility, and therefore are teachable, are moldable, right? They're open to the new ideas, the new concepts, the abilities to build on the skill sets they've got. I mean, somebody who's low on, somebody I don't trust, and somebody who thinks their crap doesn't stink, basically, you know, I mean, that I'm gonna really kind of question that, because I would say, you know, I'm to the day I die, I'm not going to stop learning. But somebody who just presents themselves that I've got all the answers, but basically, I think it's a great analogy, even though it's a bit misogynistic. But he recognizes this. He said, you know, would I trust you with my money or my wife? Right? That's a different question, right? So therefore, it is important to consider these things, and do the right people in an organization get promoted and get rewarded for the right reasons. Because very, very quickly, if you do it for the wrong reasons, you are creating a toxic atmosphere that can spiral out of control pretty quickly and have a real effect on an organization's well-being, for sure.
And I mean, most of us who work in this power skills sector or human skills sector, we've come across people who claim of themselves to be the high performers and then display a low level of EQ, emotional intelligence, and cultural intelligence. And I've had lots of those people in my classes, whether it was one-on-one engagements or group programs. And the ones who we are able to crack their shell during the program to let the toxicity evaporate, and they are able to take on new information and learn something for themselves, those are the most rewarding programs. Also, the most frustrating programs are the ones where I recognize that individual has no desire to change their being or change the way they do their work, and out of sight, out of mind very often. And once in a while I hear these updates. I'll never forget this. I had this high-ranking executive in an automotive company, a globally well-known automotive company, who was the exact poster boy for high skill, low trust, and that backfired for him. I would say probably too late in his career. It should have backfired a lot sooner, which is not a good testimony to the organization for which he worked. It allowed him to reach those levels of tenure and authority without having his trust levels checked or his soft skills levels checked. Yet at some point, there was an end to his career because the company recognized he's creating more damage than good. But I've seen these people, right? And it's rewarding, as I said, when we find ways to crack that shell, not to break people. That's not what we do, but to help them see things that have always been there and they refuse to look at them. And that's when the work that we do becomes really fascinating, I think.
Yeah, I think a wonderful power skill is then the ability to put this in the global context and observe different behaviors from different cultural lenses. And when people show up differently through their preferred cultural style, is to not misinterpret that as something that might be seen as somebody who's toxic. There are wonderfully empathetic people that are really brought up in a culture where that hasn't been rewarded. So they've kind of been so practiced in this ability to deploy the data and be very direct and be very kind of acerbic in their style. And yet it might be something that is really not at the core of their being. So I think if you don't have to dig below that surface much to find that really empathetic person that says, you know what, I wish I could communicate to my team how much I really care about them.
Yeah.
I would argue that probably exists more times than not, you know, and it is as frustrating for them as it is frustrating for the people that they manage and the people that they interact with. So this becomes a skill in a global sense to be able to maybe look at somebody at their culture and their upbringing and say that, what can I do to be generous towards their development and help them guide them down the pathway. And maybe, we need to go to that, there's a level of that kind of works, right? There is a point where the rubber hits the road. You've got to do business. You've got to make money. But I think that deep down, giving the people the grace and as we've always said, that positive, understand that they're coming from a place of positive intention. If you just assume that, there's got to be something there that's in value for this person to open them up and give them the freedom to express themselves in that way.
But as you said, and I'm not sure if you said it in those terms, but what I hear is you got to do the work. And doing the work doesn't also only mean doing the work in your job description, the technical skills, the hard ones. Doing the work means also to develop what you don't have at the level you would like to have, to relate to your team, to let them know how much you care about it. So that also is doing the work. So that's why this old dualism of the contrasting labels we used to, up until recently, used to put on these skills. We agreed that we're not doing it anymore, right? So up until recently, we had these contrasting labels, and they prevented us from looking at the labels that were often described as not so bottom line relevant. Now, I think we are making the case that they are, in fact, bottom line relevant. So you got to do the work on all of these skills. Train your people on their technical abilities. Of course, don't ever stop teaching them that. And teach them how to relate to other people, whether it's within your own culture or, as it is the case for Brett and myself very often, how to do that across national and cultural borders, across linguistic borders. Because that's where the magic happens, and that's where your global growth happens, or it doesn't.
Absolutely. Right. We want to hear from you, of course. We want to hear what your perception, your description. Maria so wonderfully, generously gave us her definition of soft skills and hard skills and a variation on that. And I think that this is important, that we hear from you, how you deploy, how you understand what your concept of these different descriptors of skills. Words have meaning, and I'm very, very cognizant of this, and I do agree with that concept that soft skills probably denotes something that's not so important. So let's talk about this. Let's we're not starting a movement. This movement exists, but we just wanted to talk about it today, and we want your feedback. If you like what you hear, what you see, just subscribe to our YouTube channels. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. It's all on the bottom. Well,
all the good stuff.
I realized I'd lowered my camera. I've got to do it.
I mean, we're obviously not making this a commercial, and yet this is a commercial. So if you feel that doing the work means stuff that you haven't been doing yet, and it includes power skills, well, you know where to go. There's other people, but they're listening to us, so here.
Yeah. Call me. All righty. Thank you very much, sir. Have a wonderful. We'll be back tomorrow with a very, very wonderful guest. We're going to be talking about a global, it is global equity for women. And we might think we only struggle in certain cultures around the world. I would argue it's probably ubiquitous to every culture in the world where women's equity needs to be worked on to whatever varying degrees it is. And we have got a knockout guest tomorrow to talk about that very thing. So we implore you to come back tomorrow at around about the same time. I think it's about 3.
We'll publish the start time in due course. So just follow your channels. Follow up with us here. Click the likes and the whatever thumbs up, and you know what these symbols do.
That's right. Yeah. But what Chris is saying is that basically you are under our spell, and we're just going to show up when we feel like it. So that's when we feel like it. That's what we do. We're in charge. We're in charge, and that's a terrible hard skill to do.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See you again tomorrow.
Bye.